Gwen Preston of Resource Maven. I'm here at the Metals Investor Forum in Vancouver in May, and I'm joined by Brandon McDonald of Fireweed Zinc, who's had a big week, put out the economic study that we've all been waiting for about McMillan Pass. Just to preface that, I mean, McMillan Pass, you guys have only had this asset for a short period of time. Fireweed is still a fairly new company. You had to put out this, you updated the resource in a very impressive way, and then quickly followed with an economic study, because you have to show that this asset works, right? This is an asset that's in a slightly remote location. The market needed to know that this thing worked. And I think that this study has really done that in a very effective way.
Yeah, you know, we'd maintained from the beginning that the economic assessment either establishes that there's no margin and that additional tons don't make any difference, right? Or that there is margin and that with the size you've got, the additional tons are gravy, right? There's a continuum there, right? But nonetheless, we're pretty happy with the results. You know, all the milestones you're looking for, north of 20% after-tax IRR, multi-cycle mine life, after-tax NPV higher than CapEx. So for a base metal asset, this is fantastic, and we kind of just think we just got started.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, like you say, this is a starting point proof that this asset makes sense, can work, multi-cycle, and it can get better in a lot of different ways. We'll get into the exploration side and perhaps the potential to add tons in a minute. But even in the study itself, I think you guys were pretty conservative in in how you approached this study.
Yeah, you know, I guess with these things, you have a choice about how aggressively you want to push your engineers on assumptions. As soon as it becomes clear that your study is going to look pretty good, you know that you don't need to be too pushy, right? And we always maintain that, you know, that the retail audience looks at the numbers, but the guys who read the studies are the potential acquirers, and you don't want anything in there that they look at and go like, you know, this is so ridiculous, right? So we wanted to make sure it was credible. And so, you know, there was a lot of things, like with the starter pits, we assumed that 100% of the waste rock was acid generating. Not a totally unreasonable assumption given that area, but 100%, you can't assume more than 100%, right? So that was the absolute limit. So keeping that in mind, we kept the pits to manageable levels. The pit on the adjacent side, 100% of the waste rock goes underground, is used for backfill, so no legacy waste rock management on that side. The majority of the waste rock on the Tom site goes underground. We sized the pit so that it doesn't interfere with the creek. Even though this is a seasonal creek that's not particularly big, we just thought let's keep it reasonable and look for opportunities to expand it. You know, the pit wall slopes, we kept at 42 degrees, which is a pretty reasonable pit wall slope. Because we just didn't have sufficient geotechnical information to, with confidence, incredibly increase the pit wall slope. You know, we could have probably pushed the engineers if we really wanted to, but then people start going, okay, so with what data do you make that assumption? So we kept it conservative. And that's kind of task before us this summer, is saying, okay, now with the most conservative case and a lot of these things established, let's see what we can actually prove is better.
Absolutely, and that's what's exciting now, is that you've really set the basis, proven that it works. So let's talk about how it could get better. I mean, at the end of the day, this is an 18-year mine life, so it's a long-lived asset at a reasonable scale of mine. But there's a lot of opportunity to grow these resources. There's drill hits that are very close to, but just outside of the resource. Not to mention this massive now land package that you've put together that has a lot of targets that haven't really seen work. So what's the approach there? Yeah,
you know, I guess you want to balance the de-risking with the upside. You know, both are important, and we're working very hard to make sure we touch on both. I think that some upside, you know, as soon as you push the mine life long enough, it starts to become kind of irrelevant.
Irrelevant to value.
We're not quite there yet, but we're certainly, particularly considering that we think we can find high-grade tons that can slot in early in the mine life. It'd be one thing if they came in year 19, but it's another thing if I can say, look, I've got these 2 million tons in year 12. I'm going to move those to 19 and put these new 2 million tons that are 2% higher grade in, right?
Yeah, that makes a difference.
So we have a lot of targets that can really, you know, with a couple pierce points, a couple drill holes, add that size of tonnage that will have that grade that immediately can make a big difference.
Absolutely. So that improves the economics right off the bat, as can lots of other things, like you say, more data about pit walls and waste rock and whether the government's going to contribute to the cost of the road, and all of those sorts of things can really improve the economics sort of right in there. And then the bigger picture, sort of doing some regional work, is part of demonstrating to maybe a very large potential acquirer, that this region has, set X mineralization to give for years to come.
Yeah, and we've established that there's at least two systems on the property, Tom and Jason. There's the third sort of poorly understood system at the end zone, and we intend this summer to demonstrate that it's still fertile for discovery, right? And if we do that, then that establishes we're sitting on a district, in which case that is a real game changer.
Absolutely. Well, congrats on the study. I know
Thank
it's
you.
been a lot of work to get the resource done and the study done, and now the work's just getting started because the field season's about to get going.
Yeah, we're mobbing next week.
Absolutely. Well, best of luck out there,
you.
and I look forward to keeping up with the news.
Yeah, likewise.